Have you ever wondered why some people seem to excel quickly in their roles while others remain stagnant despite years of hard work? Such is the tale of John, a woodcutter who had been swinging his axe at the company for 5 years, day in and day out. His routine, as unchanging as the seasons, was a symphony of sweat and sawdust. Yet despite his unwavering commitment, a pay raise remained elusive, a mirage in the desert of his labor. Then there was Bill, the new kid on the block. In just a year, he had managed to do what John couldn't in 5. He got a raise. This unexpected turn of events stirred a storm of resentment in John. He couldn't fathom how Bill, with his year-long experience, had managed to outpace him, a veteran of 5 long years. Confused and frustrated, John decided to have a chat with his boss. He hoped to unravel the mystery behind his unchanged productivity. His boss, a man of few words, put it simply. "John," he said, "you're still cutting the same number of trees you were cutting 5 years ago. We are a result-oriented company. We'd be happy to give you a raise if your productivity goes up." John took his boss's words to heart. He went back to the drawing board, determined to change his approach. He started hitting harder, putting in longer hours, pushing himself to the limit. But no matter how hard he tried, no matter how many extra hours he put in, the number of trees he could cut remained the same. John realized that he had to change his approach, but even with longer hours and harder work, he couldn't cut more trees. His axe was blunt from the years of use, and his efforts were in vain. He had been so caught up in the routine that he had forgotten to sharpen his axe. And that's when it hit him. The key to increasing his productivity wasn't to work harder, but to work smarter. Imagine trying to cut more trees with a dull axe. No matter how much force you apply, the results will be limited. This was the frustrating reality John found himself in. Despite his best efforts, despite the sweat and strain, his productivity remained stagnant. Anxious and disheartened, he once again sought advice from his boss, hoping for some form of enlightenment. The boss, in his wisdom, suggested a different approach. "Talk to Bill," he said. "Maybe there's something he knows that you and I don't." So John did just that. He approached Bill, who had been more successful in the same time frame, and asked him the question that had been gnawing at him. "How do you manage to cut more trees?" Bill's answer was simple yet profound. "After every tree I cut, I take a break for 2 minutes and sharpen my axe." This advice hit John like a bolt of lightning. He had been so focused on the task at hand, on cutting down as many trees as possible, that he had overlooked a crucial aspect of the process, the condition of his axe. He had been using the same blunt axe for years, without ever stopping to sharpen it. His efforts were akin to attempting to fill a bucket with a large hole at the bottom, futile and exhausting. Bill's advice was a revelation to John. He realized that he had been so engrossed in the act of cutting trees that he had completely neglected the maintenance of his tools. Just like a chef who sharpens his knives or a writer who refines his vocabulary, John understood that he too needed to regularly sharpen his axe to improve his productivity. This story of John and his revelation is a powerful metaphor for our own lives. We often get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of our daily routines that we forget to take a step back and sharpen our skills, our knowledge, and our abilities. We forget that continuous improvement, not just hard work, is the key to success. John finally understood that continuous improvement is key to increased productivity. Remember, it's not just about working harder, but working smarter. So when was the last time you sharpened your axe? What do you feed your mind? Is it nourishing or junk? Just as our bodies crave wholesome, nutritious food, our minds yearn for enriching thoughts and knowledge. The fuel we choose for both our bodies and our minds shapes our overall health, performance, and well-being. Consider this. If we nourish our bodies with junk food and our minds with negativity, we end up with a sick body and mind. The same principle applies to our mental diet. It's about feeding our minds with pure, positive, and powerful thoughts consistently. Just as we learn to master a sport like basketball through practice, we can learn the principles of success through constant exposure and practice. Now, we've all heard the saying, knowledge is power. But let's take a moment to dissect this. Knowledge in its raw form is simply information. It's potential power. It's like a car with a full tank of gas. But unless someone gets in and drives, it isn't going anywhere. The real power of knowledge comes into play when we act on it. So what's the difference between a person who cannot read and a person who can but chooses not to? Not a whole lot, right? Learning is akin to eating. It's not about how much you consume, but rather how much you digest and put to use. Education isn't just about grades and degrees. It's about nurturing our strengths, expanding our horizons, and cultivating a mindset of lifelong learning. As the former president of Harvard University, Derek Bach, once said, "If you think education is expensive, try ignorance." Continuous positive education leads to positive thinking, and positive thinking is the catalyst for transformation. It's the spark that lights the fire of action, turning potential power into real power. Remember, it's not about how much you learn, but how much you apply and digest that matters. So let's ask ourselves, are we sharpening our axes? Are we fueling our minds with the good stuff? Are we acting on our knowledge and turning it into power? The choice is ours. Have you ever thought about how athletes build their stamina? They train, they practice, they push themselves to their limits and then push some more. But the real secret isn't in the hours they spend on the track or in the gym. It's in the reserves they build, the reservoir of strength and stamina that they can draw upon in the heat of competition. Now imagine if we could do the same with our attitudes. Imagine if we could build a reservoir of positive thinking, a wellspring of optimism and resilience that we could draw upon when faced with the inevitable challenges and setbacks that life throws at us. Well, the good news is, we can. Positive thinkers are like athletes in this respect. They too, through constant practice, build an inner reservoir of positivity that they can draw on in times of adversity. This isn't about ignoring the negative or pretending that everything is always rosy. It's about acknowledging the negative but choosing to focus on the positive. It's about recognizing our weaknesses but choosing to build on our strengths. It's about realizing that we have the power to choose our attitude in any given situation. And it's about understanding that our attitude, more than our circumstances, often determines our success. But how do we build this reserve of positivity? Through continuous positive education. Just as athletes feed their bodies with good food, we need to feed our minds with good thoughts. We need to constantly expose ourselves to the pure, the powerful, and the positive. We need to challenge our negative beliefs and replace them with positive ones. We need to cultivate a mindset of abundance, gratitude, and resilience. And just as athletes train regularly to maintain their fitness, we too need to regularly nourish our minds with positivity. We need to make a conscious effort to surround ourselves with positive influences, to engage in activities that uplift us, and to learn from those who inspire us. Just like athletes, we must practice and build a reserve of positivity to draw on when faced with negativity. Because in the end, it's the strength of our mindset that determines our success.
What's your next step towards greatness? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's inspire each other to reach new heights. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of your dreams.